first up we have England versus Italy. As it was in the first weekend, we have Italy serving as curtain raisers for the action to come.
Yeah, appropriately enough.
Appropriately enough, I think that's a good place for them. That's going to be kicking off on Saturday 13th February at 2:15. That's local and GMT in Twickenham. And the weather is set to be, judging by when we're looking at it, may change, but set to be pretty cold, some light winds, possibility of some light snow. It's generally cold, but pretty alright, to be honest.
Yeah,
winter rugby.
We'll see that like conditions in Dublin on Sunday are to be much worse, but it is to be cold, like -1 kind of temperature, which obviously wouldn't suit the Italians too much, given they were playing in like 18 degrees last week.
Yes, that's right.
But yeah, it's to be around freezing, but not too inhibiting as far as
wind
rugby
and
playing
rain
is
and
concerned.
such. Yeah. And then it's going to be reffed by the Mike Adamson, the Scottish official, will be the man with the whistle in the middle. Just in terms of the colour of the game, it's England who are pretty rocked and will have backs to the wall. They're obviously the home team again, but nothing short of a bonus point win will do in terms of getting things started for them in their campaign. But more widely than that, they need to start using the ball more effectively. It's kind of
play some of their guys into form as well, and move the ball with a bit of sharpness and a bit of coolness. Work their offense. I mean, it's a perfect game to have after a game as stale as last week,
and with a gap week to come after it as well. There's a chance to work on some stuff midweek. Try and use the ball a bit more effectively. Break down Italy. They can break down Italy in myriad different ways. They can pick and choose, but they should be trying to work on their ball and hand play.
Gives them a great chance to do that. From an Italian perspective, I mean, I just think tightening up and being a bit smarter, not reinventing the wheel, playing a lot of those same offensive shapes, really allowing Garbisi to grow as a play caller and a runner of an offense, but then at the same time just like doubling down and focusing on not compounding mistakes, staying in the moment, just player by player, staying in the moment and not getting slumped shoulders, heads down, and trying to mitigate, losses if they come, and trying to make things awkward and trying to make teams work for every score and every inch against them. You're not going to score on the inside, you're going to have to score out wide, for example. Oh, you've gotten into the 22, well, you're not going to pick and jam your way over the line. And like at times they can be out muscled, at times they can be opened up, and at other times they just aren't focused and they're just letting teams in, and those are the kind of things that they have to limit.
They need to get a bit more of that next play mentality. Like you saw, it's something that you see to great credit in Fiji in years gone by. Even poor Fiji teams that were routinely getting hosed, like even if they were 30 points to 0 down against Australia, there's still a moment where there's a try on, and it's like, oh, there's a try, let's go. And it's that next play mentality where your head's still up, whereas with Italy it feels like each blow against them, be it them not scoring or be it the opposition scoring, it just weighs heavily, and then the shoulders slump a little more, and then suddenly fatigue does become a factor when you're losing the game by that much. They need kind of goldfish memories as far as that's concerned, and just looking at the next play, and as you say, be tight, be difficult, be composed, try and make it awkward for England. It's going to be a snowy one. Gritty. England are struggling to get their offense going. Bring pressure, try and be tougher to play against. I'm sure that's what Franco Smith is looking for, judging by his response to that France try in the first game. He wants his team to be a bit tougher than they are showing at the moment, and it seems like that's got to be the goal for Italy. Then just moving on, an overlook at the squads. Obviously there are a few updates from last week. Kyle Sinclair, from England's point of view, his suspension is over. He was to miss week 1, but he's back now and he's joined the squad, as too has Mako Vunipola. So two big men.
Strengthens them.
It adds a hell of a lot of heft to an already hefty pack. And the inclusion of those two means that Harry Williams is cut from the squad as well.
He's obviously just unfancied by Eddie Jones.
Eddie Jones.
I thought he improved the English scrum against Scotland when he came on. Actually won a penalty at one point, and I do think of him as a better scrummager than Will Stewart, although Stewart is probably a bit more use around the loose. But I like Harry Williams, and it's kind of been an interesting time for him, unable in Eddie Jones's mind to break into the squad, as is the case with so many.
It's true, so many good players. And then just one more question mark I have is Billy V's poor form going to cost him his place at any point soon? We don't have the teams named in front of us as it is. I expect probably not, but considering his performance and his showing against Scotland, the fact that European Player of the Year and Champions Cup champion Sam Simmonds isn't in the squad, seems a bit odd to me.
Well, yeah, they're not going to change that at this stage.
No.
I think it's an interesting one this week with selection. Obviously, you've a regular load of options for this game. But I do think with the Sarries guys like Jamie George and Billy Vunipola and now Mako coming back in, like, this is an opportunity to play them, and they
need game time. They need minutes.
Rugby.
Sure, the championship just set up its schedule, and it doesn't start till March. So it's like, these guys need rugby. And judging by some of the performances, even Itoje, who was everywhere in that machine, he was giving away a few loose penalties that were kind of looked rusty, you know. So they need hitouts. They need a bit of rugby under their belt.
So I would be surprised to see them drop too many of the Sarries, but I wouldn't. There's potential for bolters to be thrown in. You're looking in the direction of Paolo Garbisi, who's been highly rated. The Wasps winger could come in, add a bit of zip, add a bit of tempo. I'd love to see them give Harry Randall a shout at scrum half.
Yeah, he's been great for Bristol. Drives a nice tempo.
Yeah, Dan Robson obviously with the horror cameo.
Oh my god, he was awful.
And Ben Youngs wasn't great either, giving away a couple of sloppy passes.
Yeah. And Ben Spencer watches on from Bath.
Yes.
What's going on? What's craziness? I never understood or understand the English selection things. I think it feels like sometimes there are a lot of things left out. And then from an Italy point of view, as far as squads are concerned, Marco Zanon, the very impressive Marco Zanon, will miss out, unfortunately. He suffered a muscular injury to his right leg last week, and he's left the squad to rehabilitate back in Benetton. That will cost him. Traore, Meyer and Mbanda all did suffer knocks as well, and they're in a battle to try. They're still with the squad. They didn't get released, but they're kind of touch and go whether they'll start this weekend. And I think Traore probably won't.
They added Lavati to the squad, which would make you think that. I tell you, they're very, if Meyer and Mbanda can't play, they're very light in the back row, which is an area of strength for them. Like with no Negri, no Pellegri, Mbanda is a great player as well, and Meyer was sort of that other South African coming in and being physical. Meyer looked in bad condition when he went off last week, so
he did.
It's hard to imagine. Hopefully Mbanda's okay, but like they are quite stretched in that area, which is unfortunate for them.
It's such a taxing area because like the Six Nations games often do end up in a
the
dogfight
guys
in the
who
back
do
row.
90% of Italy's work as well, you know. So it is rough on them there. From a squad point of view. What is exciting is that there's a chance to put Carlo Canna back in the mix. Obviously Ignacio Brex, who was at 12, will likely shift over to 13.
Probably.
He made one good break, but he
looks a little slow as well.
A lot slow.
If you're to put him at 13 and Carlo Canna converted 10 at 12, that seems a bit soft in the midfield if England choose to run there.
Well, the other thing is that like England have been so stubborn, and Eddie Jones made the point I think last year that he was going to use this year, speaking of last year, and this year, speaking of this year, 2020 and 21, to develop sort of the kicking game and the defence, and that's what it's all going to be about, and then we'll work on the attack for the next 2 years, 4-year project. And he can be very stubborn with his ways. Like, one wonders, we know from an Ireland point of view, if your one-track game plan gets found out, it doesn't stop getting found out no matter how well you execute it, you know. And from an English point of view, I don't know if if they keep playing the way they're playing, they're going to lose games. So I don't know if they want that. But it's possible that they go out, as they did when they played Italy in the autumn in the last Six Nations game, when they needed to rack up a score and didn't really, they just got away with it. But they just kicked the leather off the ball for the whole game. And if that's the case, I mean, Italy, you saw the blueprint from Scotland, you saw it from France, kicking it deep. Carlo Cano is going to have a big task on him, young Garbisi as well. They do like to move the ball well, but England are ferocious. Getting it outside them is going to be tough. They are going to need to do that on occasion. They do have the dual distributors. It involves standing deep and passing crisply, but kicks in behind and deep kicks could be an entry point for them in the game. I would wonder about the fullback position. They've had Trulla in there, who hasn't been too impressive. I like the thing in my head that's screaming is that Tommy Allen is in the squad. I would if I was Franco Smith, I might take a gamble on Tommy Allen at 15,
or him at 10 with Garbisi at 15.
No, Garbisi at 10.
Garbisi is at 10.
Garbisi's the 10 forever. I think
so. He's a young
he
man.
Runs the offense he's doing a great job of it. But I think chucking a rogue Tommy Allen in there at fullback to add a kicking dimension, and he also adds a lot of zip to the game in a way that I just wasn't impressed with the back three particularly, and even Trulla at 15 in particular didn't offer much.
Yeah.
So I think it's an interesting shout.
In terms of the other squad, they actually have an uncapped winger, Pierre Bruno, as well, to throw into the mix.
Yeah.
And the other the danger man, Monte Ione, is in there, and they need to get him the ball a bit more often, because he was hungry for work in that game, and he looks dangerous when he gets his hand on it. So yeah, maybe mixing up that fullback jersey could be a good way to do that. But we'll just go through both teams in terms of this game. And we'll start with the home team, which is England, and just starting with their defence, because normally we'll start with offence, but with England it's the defence, because that's kind of been what they've, as we said, it's what they're building their game on. It's been stellar for years now. We were talking last week in the preview of the whole tournament, just how few points they've been conceding in all of their games last year, which is a consistent trend. It's been brilliant. With that in mind, this Italy offence, this kind of fledgling Italy offence with its wide attempt, it's lots of ambition with a little unslickness here and there, should be easy pickings for a defence of this calibre. They should be able to swarm them, bully them, impose themselves on them, force errors, drops, loose kicks, and then ideally punish them from it. That should be they would punish their mistakes with ball in hand with good line speed and pressure. That's going to be a key part of the English game. Force them into the aimless kicking is definitely a factor. The question is just what England will do when they do that to them. Like, will they be?
Yeah, and the other question, obviously, last week, one of the narratives we didn't go into was just the discipline as well. Like, they're so, like, they weren't making the plays on the kicks, and they weren't making the plays on offense. They were so determined to make their plays on defense that they ended up just sort of flying into rucks, flying offside, making dumb plays, and forcing the issue. And they gave away just what felt like just a rake load of penalties.
At the end 15 in the end, which felt like 30.
Yeah, no, it looked like way more in that first half. It felt like they conceded 15 by 20 minutes in it. They just kept conceding penalties.
Yeah.
And like that's obviously a work on for them. Don't force the issue. Do come out and swallow them up. And if they don't concede the penalties, they'll be in a much better position.
Yeah.
But as you say, from an offensive point of view,
that's where the question mark comes. I'm sure for most England fans as well, it's frustrating viewing at times to have guys like Farrell and Slade who are distributing forces in the midfield, and yet all they're there to do is kick seemingly, and they're not distributing at all.
There was such a lack of patience about them as well last week, in terms of, like, after 3 phases that went wrong, they kind of gave up on it, and there was none of that sort of, like 2 or 3 screens and multiple options and multiple dimensions with Farrell picking passes. Farrell didn't want to pick passes, and it's going to be a cold game again. They're going to have to just, I think they're going to have to move the ball and work that sort of offense, or at least some version of that offense that was working well for them, that involved multiple options and multiple distributors, and the potential to go wide or go narrow, and then just isolate weak Italian defenders and put hard runners on them. And that's where you can get good plays for the likes of Ollie Lawrence or whoever they go for on that channel.
It's tough, isn't it? Because they did, like, Saracens getting punished the way they was obviously the right thing to do, but like a lot of England's shape and success was born from that Saracens team and what they were doing in European rugby, and
copy pasted and now the Saracens offense. Like, they the biggest false narrative in rugby, in European rugby, for a couple of years was that Saracens are a defensive big team. And while they kind of were in 20 last year, or 2020 and 2019, maybe a little less flash than and then
a few years prior, 2015, when they had the Wolfpack and stuff, that was their thing. But
with Alex Good at his pump and Owen Farrell, they worked just this lovely, sophisticated offense where every sequence off, it doesn't matter what phase, they had forward pods everywhere. They were running different screens with 2 forward runners and men in behind with extra runners off
just
them.
Pick the right pass.
Exactly.
Through they go.
It was just there was always a gap somewhere, and they were always picking the right pass, and it was just a beautifully designed offense that was very much like off the playbook, and a disciplined offense, and it felt like the future of rugby at the time, and then he deployed it to a T at the World Cup. And since then, just no offense.
Sarries has disappeared, and so too, and at the same time, has England's offensive chops, and now Exeter are the top team in England, a very defensive, bludgeoning team, and England look a bit more defensive and bludgeoning, and then when they were forced into an offensive set at the end of last week's game, they looked rusty as all hell.
Say what you want about Exeter, at least they are clinical.
Oh yeah,
I know that sort of the rudimentary pick and jam style is less likely to work at test level, although you'd fancy it against Italy. They're going to have to work something else, and it's on the coaching ticket to come up with something
design
clever
something cool. Like, you'd love to see it. They have so many weapons. Like you were pointing out, Anthony Watson had like we noticed him at first well into the second half with 2 touches off a kick that it was like, oh, there's Anthony Watson. Haven't seen him all day, and then he got hauled off. The only
Johnny May highlights were him getting a couple of knock-ons from kicks and him getting held up by Johnny Gray.
Yeah,
those were his moments. He wasn't put in space once, and that's clearly something that England are going to want to be doing.
Yeah, sure. When this time 2 years ago, it was all about Farrell to Johnny May, and that was try time, and it's like those guys are still in the team, and they're still able to do it. And as you say, it is Italy, so they can beat them. They can choose to beat them any which way. Even the last game they had against them, they did kick the leather off the ball, and they still got tries from it because Italy gave them to them. So there's going to be, you can win it whatever way you like, but if you're going forward in this competition and going forward in general, you need to start working more with the ball, and this is a perfect chance to try and work on some of those things. And then from Italy's point of view, just completely different from their offensive point of view. Like, they showed some progress. They were, as you said, they were getting credit for the way they approached the game against the French. I like their shape, and I like the fact that they're trying to get things wide. I like that they're trusting Garbisi and young Varney to set a nice tempo for him. I like a lot about what they're doing. Sometimes the passing is letting them down, just the technical skill of passing, especially when you're trying to put together those 5-6 pass plays to reach the extremities. Some of them are just a little inaccurate, either up here, behind here, checking the runner, and that's enough to get swallowed up by these top teams they're facing. But I think they should persist with it, not least because like they have no chance if they're just going to go off 9 and run into the English. They could do that all day. They're never going to yield anything. They need to try to get outside them and behind them with their kicking game. This is what you alluded to as well, like Carlo Cano.
For me, Cano in the autumn was a vital cog in what they were doing, and I'd be happy to see him back in there, albeit unfortunate it's at the expense of Zanon.
Ideally you'd have him and Zanon in there. That would be their nicest.
Brex to me feels like a failed experiment, although we will likely see him again on the outside centre position, which is apparently his preferred position, so there is that. But just expanding the field, attacking the width of it, which they're doing a great job of doing, and then just putting in probing kicks when to test the backfield coverage and to get in behind the wingers. That does have to come with a chase. Ideally they go out of play, because obviously there's the danger of a Daly picking it up and launching it back with interest.
Yes, it's true.
You don't want that to happen, needless to say. But just putting England under pressure and owning the territory game is going to be crucial when they're on the ball.
And to be honest, the equation as well for all teams, including Italy, as far as exits are concerned, is try and pump them deep. It's the recipe against England. You need to be able to get them. Like, if Varney's tamely box kicking it out on the full from his own 22, you're going, what are you doing?
That's what England want you to do.
Exactly. Like, none of that.
No, kick it deep, because at the moment, if you kick the ball downfield and reach their 10, England simply won't counterattack. And they'll just kick it in the air. Now maybe that'll change in this game, and they do have to. That does have to be caveated.
And England do tend to be confident against Italy. They very much do. They don't struggle for it at all. They know that they're the better team, and when England know that they're the better team, they tend to perform better. It's one of their good qualities in their temperament. It's the same can't be said about Scotland or Ireland or the like, who wear the favourites tag with such weight and chagrin. England tend to hose Italy, and they do it in any different picture you like. But with Italy, from Italy's point of view, they have to just approach this game with the lessons you learn about this England team. So for the moment, yes, pump it deep. If they counter-attack and score, well, fair enough. You may have to change it on the fly, change the plan. But as it is, you're going to go deep on exit. But then the other thing, which I always mention, is just you got to exert early pressure with points. Like they're only winning picture. Like, it's still a very slim chance. They're in all likelihood going to lose this game. It's away in Twickenham. But like, they don't beat England, and the day that they do beat England, it involves them shooting into a lead and holding on for dear life. I'm convinced of that. They're not going to be in a 9-9 draw and a scrap at 60 minutes and then kicking a winning drop goal.
England spend a game refusing to attack.
They're not going to. They're still going to cough up scores. They need to score tries, and they need to try to score tries in the first quarter when they have the zip about them. And
the red zone return is a massive concern.
It is, obviously. That's the caveat. England's red zone defence is so awesome, but what you'd like to see is, even if they're going for it, kick the corner, go for it. Even if the lineout's turned over straight away and it's cleared, that's still okay. Like, it's like a 3-pointer is just no use to you. You should be focusing on trying to score at least 20 points, which isn't going to happen by you building a score with 3-pointers. There's no pressure there. But what could happen is you score a try on the third or fourth attempt, because if England are going to keep kicking from their own half and you're kicking the corner, you're playing good territory game anyway. What their issue is that when the first one gets repelled, as we saw last week, what you can't afford to do then is go, penalty. Oh, another penalty. Oh, now we're under our own sticks, which could so easily happen. Yeah. But you just gotta trust in the process. We're going to go to the corner. We may get turned over. We may get stopped, but we're going to go for it. We have the energy now. We need to score tries. We know we need to score tries. We have gone the last 2 years in this tournament without registering a point on the table. Like 4-try bonus point could happen if you go for tries. But kicking 3-pointers in the first quarter when you only score 3 times in a game, it just makes no sense.
You're probably right about that. I know that's a constant bugbear of yours, but
you're away in Twickenham. You're by far the underdog team. The only winning picture you have is you catch them cold and go 21-0 up, and then hold on for dear life. And then when you're 21-0 up, kick 3-pointers. You're gassed anyway. As soon as you have a sniff, then you kick your 3-pointers. You're holding on to a score, but you're not building a score with 3-pointers. England just won't fear that.
On defence, obviously, few key work-ons. The one we keep harping on is tackle completion percentage. Committing to tackles. The technique is not great.
It's but not just the main point.
There's commitment issues going on,
especially in the third quarter when the game's gone.
Harping back to that Xander Fagerson try that Scotland scored when the game
in
was
the
in the
Autumn
Nations
Cup, wasn't it?
Last autumn, when he just caught the ball. It looked like it might have been a dead play, but then the Italian just watched him.
Yeah, two of them watched them go between them because they thought, was that not knock on? And it's play the whistle, guys, come on.
Likewise last week, I know Teddy Thomas is elusive, but when he gets the ball and he dances through about 7 of them, and 1 or 2 of those tackles in particular are just so lightweight. Those kind of things just they can't afford. And then the other thing is keeping their shape, and that goes back to the sort of staying in the moment dynamic, next play dynamic. Like sometimes when they're just going, but when they've fallen behind, they stop communicating, their heads fall down, and they just leave open spaces. And you look at the reaction to the French line break for the first try, the Cretin try. Like France get to the 1 metre line, and Italy all but give them the try from there. They don't work around the corner. They don't really hustle enough. They don't make it difficult for France. I know Dupont is tricksy, but they don't slow the ball up once. They don't make. They
don't even give away a penalty.
No.
Why aren't you giving away a penalty?
Yeah, there and then.
You kill the play.
You don't get the impression from them that they're desperate not to concede when they get down there. You get the impression that they're like,
they're all used to conceding.
Yeah,
they're very too used to conceding. They just conceded 50 points at home and were praised for the performance.
Yeah, that's
not good.
That's the concern. So they are a young team. There are shoots of optimism, but until they enforce a bit of discipline and a real element of just sort of grit and playing
which
for the
you
jersey.
see from Benetton. Benetton is the glimmer of hope because even though Benetton haven't won many games this season, and that's they probably should have won a bit more.
You get the sense that the players are living and dying for the jersey. Though. They're not
forcing
easy.
a team like Munster to have to kick a last minute goal to win the game. Like every tough.
Your opponent might be better than you, but you're not going to give them anything. You're going to be so miserly. You're not giving away penalties. You're not giving away cheap meters on the inside. If you want to beat us, you're going to have to go out and beat us. And I think that's got to be an attitude that they work in, as well as the free-flowing stuff on offense, which is grand. They do need to work a bit of grit, and that's the word, isn't it? Grit.
It's grit, and they haven't shown any thus far, and it definitely is a work on for them. Also just essentially develop more grit, but also stop doing your opponent's work for you as well. That's like a main thing. Like too many tries against Italy, it feels like Italy scored that try. Penalty, crashed over from 3 meters, and it's like, what did France even do, or what did Ireland even do, or England even do? Or like you're too used to watching it. Stop doing their work for them.
Make the play at the very least.
At the very least is right. So then, with all that said, I suppose we should look at predictions. What do you think might happen?
It's interesting. Like scoreline prediction is almost less interesting than just whether England will attack. That's what I'm curious to see. Is like, will Eddie Jones be bullish and just stick to his the only kick?
Because I think it'll work. I think Italy will panic.
It'll work today. It won't work going forward.
No.
And I think it could come back to bite them like in a big way. But that's the big dynamic for me.
Will we see Slade's passing game?
Yeah, that's the kind of thing. That's the kind of thing you want to see. But like as far as the scoreboard, I think I think it's obvious to everybody that Italy aren't on the same level as the other 5 teams, and England, like the other 5, like the rest of the teams, will record a bonus point win at the very least. And like even if they do kick the leather off the ball, they're going to be given easy entrances. What I expect is a bit of a response from them. I expect them to keep the ball
there's the bounce back ability thing as well.
Yeah.
Italy are teed up for a bit of a revenge tonking, which normally happens when a team of the caliber of England suffer a home defeat the week before. It's not good for Italy's chances at all. But
I think if you have for anyone who's doing fantasy, I think your man Odogwu, the uncapped winger, could be a bolter you throw in.
Might be,
just that's my tip. I don't even do it, but that's my tip. I just think they might throw him into the starting team, and they might get him on the ball, and he might be they might try and add a bit of zip and a bit of spark, and generate some confidence, even if they don't look necessarily slick or perfect. I suspect they'll develop a bit of confidence by running up a score here against Italy. So I'm going to say England 55 to 19. Nah, to 12. 55 to 12.
55 to 12, yeah.
19. Go back to 19. They will get a late try. 55 to 19.
Like,
three tries for Italy in that 19.
Lovely. That's what I want to see.
No points.
That's what I want to see.
3 tries. They'll be close to the 4 tries that you're asking for. But 55-19.
I would love that. I would love to see it. That's my dream prediction. Now, that being said, I think it'll probably be about 42 to 9. 3 pointers for me to stew over, and they kicked the third
9 all
one
at half time.
Maybe it could be anything all at half time. They're still going to concede all those points in the last half, in the second half. I think England will score slightly fewer points than France, but will still rack up the bonus point, and Italy will maybe score a try, but probably not, to be honest. I think England's defence is probably...
I think their attack is getting better, and I think England might play looser, and I think they might make a couple of changes which will leave them disjointed, and you know what? Garbisi is going to get a couple of assists, and they are going to get a few tries in a 55 to 19 defeat.
Okay, yeah, let's see what happens on the weekend. With that, we will move on. Thank you very much for tuning into the Overlap Rugby podcast. If you're new here, please do like and subscribe and ring the bell as well so you'll be notified when we upload. But mainly drop a comment down below as well. We love hearing your thoughts on the rugby. Cheers.